Houston, the city we all call home, continues to prosper and grow. Ranked the 4th largest city in the United States, we are a dynamic community, rich in culture and diversity. Together, our people and our neighborhoods help to shape this global metropolis where ideas, dreams, and imagination are welcomed and celebrated. How we choose to govern ourselves is established by our city charter. Much like the U.S. Constitution, our city charter is the framework for the organization of the City of Houston's government and for the relationship between our government and we, the people. Since 1979, when voters approved a change to the charter, our city has been governed by a 9-5-1 system. This means that 9 city council members are selected from specific geographic districts, 5 are selected from across the city as a whole or at large, and they are led by 1, the mayor, for a total of 15 votes on city council. When this system was adopted, there were about 185,000 people per council district. Now, in 2010, the average district population will be slightly more than 200,000 people. The city charter, as well as state and federal law, require that we adjust our city council districts from time to time in order to ensure that the difference in district populations is never more than 10% of average district population. We last adjusted or redistricted our city council district boundaries after the 2000 U.S. Census. As the 2010 U.S. Census numbers come in, we are once again adjusting. This time, however, we will not only be modifying the boundaries of our 9 districts, but also adding 2 more. Our city charter requires that the City Council expand from the current 9-5-1 system to an 11-5-1 system when census data demonstrates that our population exceeds 2.1 million residents. With the much-anticipated release of the 2010 U.S. Census results, we have begun the process of redistricting in order to add these 2 new single-member districts. This is a historic moment for Houston, and we need to hear from you and your neighborhood regarding your suggestions for the configuration of the new council districts. Where the Houston pie is currently divided into 9 pieces, we now need to split that same pie into 11 pieces. This means that each council district will be slightly smaller, both geographically and in population. Making this significant of a change will most likely affect every single member district boundary.
The goal of redistricting is to reconfigure our districts, to add the 2 new districts, and to achieve an even distribution of the population in each district to meet the requirements of state and federal laws. Starting in 1964, the Supreme Court recognized the principle of one person, one vote, and the applicability of the Equal Protection Clause to redistricting. And the Voting Rights Act of 1965, as amended, also sets forth requirements that will affect this process, including a requirement that we seek pre-clearance of our redistricting plan from the U.S. Department of Justice. The Department of Justice's interest is simple. Redistricting must not discriminate on the basis of race, color, or membership in a protected language minority group.
City Council adopted a resolution on January 12, 2011 that established the timeline, criteria, and rules that will help guide the redistricting process. The specifics for each of these, available in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese, can be found on our website at www.houstontx.gov. Our redistricting timeline is guided in part by the dates when results of the 2010 census becomes available and by the Texas Election Code, which provide that changes in election boundaries, including council district boundaries, must be adopted more than 3 months before Election Day. We must also leave sufficient time for the pre-clearance review by the Department of Justice. We have a tight schedule for this very important work. We have organized these town hall meetings to help keep you informed and aware of what we are doing at every step of the process. Public participation, your participation, is an important part of this process, and we hope you'll provide comments to help guide decisions about the configuration of our 11 council districts. These meetings will happen across Houston throughout the month of March. On April 6th, Planning Department staff will present a draft plan and map to City Council. 3 public hearings will be held for citizens to comment on the draft plan and map. The first will be on April 13th. The 2 others will be held on April 20th, one in the morning and one in the evening. City Council will approve the redistricting plan ordinance in May so that it can be sent to the Department of Justice in June. This will give us time to hit key dates as we prepare for the next election on November 8th.
The criteria adopted by City Council, which should be followed to the greatest extent possible, include districts should be relatively equal in population, with no more than a 10% variation from the average district size, thereby ensuring the vital standard of one person, one vote. They must be composed of whole county voting precincts, which are defined by the counties and serve as the building blocks of the redistricting process. When precincts are split by the city limits, only the city portion of that precinct will be used. They should have easily identifiable geographic boundaries, such as major thoroughfares or bayous. They should maintain communities of interest, neighborhoods. They should be compact and composed of contiguous territory, including functional or geographical contiguity. The functional dimension may take on added weight in situations in which geographic compactness may not be possible in light of the fact that some areas are attached to the remainder of the city only by relatively long and narrow strips of land. Functional compactness and contiguity includes considering factors such as availability of transportation and communication, existence of common social, economic, and other shared interests, the ability of citizens of a council district to relate to each other and to their representative on the city council, and the ability of the council member to relate to his or her constituency. They should preserve incumbent constituent relations by recognition of the residence of existing members of the council and their history in representing certain areas. The plan should be narrowly tailored to avoid retrogression in the position of racial minorities and language minorities as defined in the Voting Rights Act with respect to their effective exercise of the electoral franchise. And the plan should not fragment a geographically compact minority community or pack minority voters in the presence of polarized voting so as to create liability under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act.
More details about these criteria can be found on the website in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. To help us manage this complicated and lengthy process, City Council also established these important rules. The city's plan and anyone else's plans submitted to the city for consideration must 1. Be in writing, 2. Be based on the 2010 federal census, 3. Must redistrict the entire city, containing proposed boundaries for all council districts within the city. If a plan does not redistrict the entire city, it may be impossible for council to assess the plan's impact on one or more protected minority groups. This requirement does not preclude citizens from proposing that particular voting precincts, neighborhoods, or locations be included in a specific council district. 4. The plan must conform to the criteria discussed previously. And 5. Be submitted no later than 4:15 p.m. on Friday, May 6, 2011, to Margaret Wallace in the Planning and Development Department. We are very interested in hearing from you and your neighborhood regarding your suggestions for the configuration of the new council districts. Your input may simply be regarding neighborhood boundaries, or you may want to submit a complete redistricting plan. Either way, there are several points at which you can submit your comments, opinions, or plans. 1. Here at this or other scheduled town hall meetings. 2. Through our webpage at www.houstontx.gov. 3. Directly to Margaret Wallace in the Planning Department through email at margaret.wallace@houstontx.gov. by U.S. Postal Service or hand delivery to Margaret Wallace, or at one of the 3 public hearings that will be held in City Council chambers on the 2nd floor of City Hall at 901 Bagby Street. If you want to submit a plan of your own, it is vital that you follow the procedures, criteria, and rules for the consideration and establishment of new council districts. We're ready to help. To enable members of the community to develop and submit their own plan, a computer kiosk with redistricting software will be set up in the offices of the Planning and Development Department on the 6th floor of 611 Walker 77002. Please call 713-837-7826 to set up an appointment so a staff member can assist you in using the software. Again, all plans must be submitted to Margaret Wallace no later than 4:15 p.m. on Friday, May 6, 2011.
No matter how or where you join this conversation, we encourage you to help us understand where your neighborhood boundaries are and where it makes sense to keep a community of interest together. Houston will be stronger as a result of your participation. Thank you for joining in the conversation.